Welcome back to another Medicinal Mass Debates production. This is a sister channel to Medicinal Mass Media. We have a 2v2 debate going on today with Rocket Man, Earth is Life, supporting Globe, and Dan the Waterman, representing two flat earthers in one. He's going to pull the weight for all of them, so go ahead and introduce them to you now. How you guys doing?
Good.
Alrighty.
Mic check.
Loud and clear.
Good.
I'm clear.
Cool.
All right, so this is going to be kind of a free form debate. So if there's any specific topics anyone wants to argue about first, we'll probably give it to Dan if he wants to address something.
I resent the word. I resent the word argument. I hate the word debate. But I have stuff that you might contest anyway. How's that?
Hey, really quick before we start, there might be a chance I have to cut out because my wife will probably be coming home, or I've got kids out here, so if something crazy happens, I might have to just cut out real quick. So just bear with me.
Yeah. Also, a little side note for me: I'm not incredibly well versed in every argument, so if there's anything that I can't really strongly defend on my part, I'll just step out and hand it to my partner.
Okay. If I'd like to title this segment classes of refraction in particular, because refraction's been the reason that we've been told.
Dan, can we argue about something other than refraction, Dan? Now, I don't want to say argue, but I know you like to talk about refraction, and you're probably going to bring up your laser test. But let's talk about something different other than refraction.
But I have a body of work and a brand new revelation, including a concession.
I know, but I have a body of work also.
How about we'll let Dan bring up his first argument, and then we'll at least flesh that out for a minute.
Based on the fact he has something to say and a time constraint, you could go first, and we'll decide if I should do my presentation here or not on the other stuff. How's that?
I suppose that works too. So go ahead, Earth is Life. Why don't you address something?
I just want again to say, everyone, that I have a certain amount of respect for Earth is Life because he's been around the whole time I have, and I don't know him well at all. We're not close, and we're not enemies either. So I think it's a good chance that I found someone I felt like talking to today. So I was saying around somewhere, where are you? Where are you at, bro? So I'm happy to hear from you, but you don't. That's it.
Well, yeah, I appreciate that. I mean, I know we have discussed things before, and it has gotten heated several times. I know the last time we spoke, we left on bad terms, but I think we can have a decent discussion. I would just like to, I know when we get into these discussions, we kind of have our Achilles heel or things we like to go to. But I think what's also good is that sometimes if you step out of your comfort zone and talk about something that you might not be familiar with, that might give you another thing to maybe research and look at. I know I understand your body of work and what you've done. I respect that, but I think if at all possible, you can look at something else that might help you in your quest for the truth.
I agree with you because I spend most of my time outside of the echo chamber of flat earthers. Most of my time is spent outside of that. So I'm with you. What do you got?
So I know we have touched on this before, but the issue with the flights in the southern hemisphere. These flights happen all the time. We know where we know where they start. We know where they finish. We know the distance between those airports. And is there an explanation for the distance and the time that it takes these flights to travel? Is there an explanation for that on the flat Earth?
I can give you it in a sort of a crappy law of averages and math. Is that half of what flat earthers say isn't right, and of the remaining half of that can be explained. So now we're down to 25% of what flat earthers say being worth listening to, and then I'll give that a coin toss. So 85% of what we're talking about is someone that isn't research schooled or really worth talking to, really. So it's only people that go out and do stuff or that do their research that I'm interested in. And kind of like Christians, when they go, I'm a Christian, like 1 in 10 walks the talk, walks the walk and talks the talk. Flat earthers are kind of the same way. There's a lot of gamesmanship and a lot of challenged individuals that don't have nothing going with them. That's why you see me wanting to talk about what I've done in the field. I can't explain the southern hemisphere. I'm not there to study it, and I'm smart enough not to make up anything either. So you're going to find me to be what looks like a big pussy with no answers, but I don't have answers for that. And what I have is probably a bunch of shitty claims, a couple of mistakes, and a lie that's perpetuated what may not be true and provable by one fucking flight.
Right. So let's just take one flight in particular. So the one from Johannesburg to Sydney. I believe the distance is about 6,863 miles, roughly, because I've measured on Google Earth.
We used to say it doesn't exist. We used to say the flight doesn't exist.
Yeah. The time it fluctuates between 13 to 14 hours, and the opposite direction is about 10 to 11 hours. Now, obviously, when we look at the flat Earth model, that just wouldn't. It really doesn't make sense. And I'm sure you don't really adhere to that model, but do you think if the Earth were a globe, would these flights match would they match a globe model given the distance and the time it takes for them to get to the destination?
Fuck, you're gonna hate my answer, man. But like when we do observations, they keep telling us, why are you going so far? It increases all the problems. And for me, I'd have to understand domestic flights first, like in terms of east-west action and shit, before I could really understand the differences in claims. Because here to there and there to here is going to be difference anyway, based on the rotational speed. So I don't know what jet streams are being claimed on top of existing rotational speeds. So my numbers are going to be pretty fucked up when you get into 12 and 18-hour flights. So I have no record at all.
So if you do look at the jet streams, right? The average speed of a jet stream is between 80 and I think 140 miles per hour. Don't quote me on that, but I think it's roughly about that, right? That would only change that only changes the flight by about maybe an hour or so, roughly, give or take which direction it's traveling. So if you look at the flat Earth model, the distance between those two airports would be almost 3 times as big, and it would take for probably a 300 or 400 mile an hour jet stream to help that flight get to its destination in the time that's posted on the websites that show the flight times.
Are you taking into consideration the tangent speed change? You know, like
No, because there's.
the ground
I'm
speed's
sorry.
going to be dramatically different.
No, the ground speed. Well, the ground speed would change with the jet stream. That's why in one direction it's a different. The time is different. The airspeed is roughly the same because that's the speed that the aircraft goes.
Is there
And
any north-south behavior? Because that's where the difference in speed would come
not
in.
not really. It's mostly just it's the jet streams in one direction. That's why in one direction the flight is a little bit longer.
But if I
Right.
took off in, let's say, Chicago and flew to LA, when I drop down into a different rotational speed, there's a different speed that you pick up a couple hundred miles an hour right there.
No, because not really because in you said which two cities did you say?
Let's just say you went diagonally across the U.S. If you went south at all during your east-west travel, you'll have to change tangential speeds.
Yeah, but not by as much as you're thinking.
Are you sure? Because
yeah, I'm sure.
Well, you're
Yeah, it wouldn't
about,
be that much.
well, you could gradient it yourself. There's 1,000 at the equator and 0 at the top. So 500 in between would be around Canada, right? You know, and then drop down through the U.S. So you've got to be a couple hundred miles throughout the U.S.
Yeah, but you're traveling laterally, and you're still going with the rotation of the Earth. So it's not really going to make much of a difference going laterally. Now, going straight north and south, you might have that problem. But still, you're still going over the same tract of land. Now, so east to west doesn't really make a difference.
Well, that's why I was asking how much north and south is there, because if you're only looking for a couple of 100 miles an hour, it might have come from that.
Yeah, well, like I said, it's not much of a latitude change. Not I think
How much?
if you look at the lateral, let me see if I can.
There's a map behind Rocket Man, I think.
So yeah, Rocket Man, if you could pull up the latitude of Sydney and then the latitude of Johannesburg.
I've actually got a live flight going on that if I could share.
But they're not dramatic. I can see it's probably not dramatic, right? You're right. It's mostly straight across the bottom.
If I could share my screen, I've got flight radar. I've got a Santiago to Sydney and a Johannesburg to Sydney.
So it's
happening right now.
So it's literally in flight right now, and that will tell you the ground speed. It'll tell you
GPS.
A lot of different GPS coordinates. It'll tell you everything.
Right, but it won't tell you the speed of the Earth underneath it.
Which is kind of irrelevant. We're not worried about the rotation.
Can we see the difference north and south?
Because the plane isn't in ballistic flight, it's using the atmosphere for thrust. You neglect the speed because it's rotating with the Earth. So the only thing that you need is the ground speed, because it's the speed in which the plane is just traveling over a point in the ground. Because it's using the atmosphere for thrust, the atmosphere is in the globe model moving with the Earth. So
I can only make the claim if I can see a vertical difference. If you guys can explain to me the north-south difference between the two, I can explain 200 miles an hour. That's not the route, right? What is that?
Well, this is the live route. That is the flight path. That is the.
In other words, where are the 2 points that he's talking about? Do you know?
Well, so Johannesburg is minus 26 degrees, is 26 degrees south, and the plane's currently 48 degrees south, so that's 22 degrees.
Okay, so that's the origin on the left. Where's the
yeah.
Where's the destination?
Destination is here, which is
okay. Can you zoom out again so I can see it?
Minus 33 degrees. So in total, there's only
that's not dramatic
7 degrees latitude difference.
It's not enough to pick up 100 miles an hour. Not at all.
No.
Cool.
And as you can see, it's not flying direct because of the fact of it's. Hold on one second.
Yeah. But there is also a Santiago to Sydney flight happening at the same time. That's
Now it's funny, oddly enough, going through the Great Circle on the bottom, the way it looks like it is, it would go through that airspeed change.
Yeah, I mean, this one with currents has got a ground speed of 531 miles an hour, going from east to west.
Right, but it's the ground. It's the ground speed that changes.
Yeah.
The ground itself.
Yeah. And
no, the ground speed is the airspeed plus the wind speed that gives you the ground speed.
But the ground is what's changing.
It's the airspeed plus the wind speed.
It's just what I'm. Yeah. All right. Whatever. it's
yeah.
All,
when you look up ground speed, they calculate that by the airspeed along with the jet stream.
Well, not when we're talking about the Earth when we're not flying. I'm talking about the actual speed of the ground, hence the speed of the air above it. In other words, the air is generally lockstep with, otherwise there'd be wind all the time. But your atmosphere is moving with the Earth, is what they say.
That would be your airspeed. That would be your airspeed.
Well, the speeds you're talking about from the airplane are all relative to something. You know, so I'm talking about Earth relative to Earth in terms of the fact that it's not all at one speed. That's all.
Right. Okay. Let's not talk about the rotation of the Earth for right now. Right. We're talking about the distance, right, and the time that it takes this flight to get from point A to point B. That's the real issue here. Because regardless of anything, there'd be no way for this flight, which I think this one is the shorter one.
Yeah, it's 10 hours.
I think this was only 11. Yeah, 10 hours, right?
Yeah,
it's 10 hours. So there's no way for this flight to make a 10-hour flight from these two locations on the Flat Earth model. And I know you don't adhere to that model, but we understand that the only model it does work on is on the globe model, unless of course the distances are incorrect or the continents are in the wrong place.
Yeah. And we've got the distances here. You know, it's taken 4 hours and 50 minutes to travel just over 5,000 kilometers, and to travel the remaining just under 6,000 says it's going to take just under 6 hours. So we've got the distances it says it's going to travel and everything.
Sorry, guys, I got kids over
we've
here.
got a lot of bogus claims. I've heard flat earthers make every possible claim here, so I don't know any of them to be valid. What I have noticed is there are claims that the flights exist where they did not appear to exist, but that's an old claim. That's a 7-year-old claim. So, you know, saying it doesn't exist is kind of stupid if you could see it tracking now, right?
Yeah, this is live tracking now. You've got its 24-bit address. It's constantly updating its live latitude, longitude position. So if you wanted to check it, you could quickly just copy and paste them in, you know, and see where it spits them out. It's got its tracking, you know. And also, you know, I've used this app before to track planes. I like to plane watch sometimes. I track planes, you know, over the course of multiple hours, waiting for them to land at the airport. And I watched the planes I've been tracking for the last hour and a half landing at the airport, you know, within seconds of when the app tells me they are, with the same ID, you know, the exact same plane, everything. So, you know, there is substantial evidence support that all these flights on here do exist.
Have you ever seen this image?
And like I'm sorry.
Have you seen this image on its side? Can you turn this on its side to see it, their elevations? In other words, all these planes take off, then they come up to elevation.
Yeah.
Then they drop down when they get to their destination. and I suggested all those elevations are about 37,000 feet.
Yeah.
It's currently at 38,000 feet.
There's a graph that shows the as the plane ascends and descends, it'll show you the altitude.
Yeah. I'll see if I can get a 3D view.
It's really interesting to see. I've seen one, and it doesn't appear to be a curved line above, let's say, the span of the United States in its entirety. It doesn't seem to be a
Well,
curved line.
Well, Dan, remember, regardless if it shows a curved line, it's all about the distances and the time that it takes the flight to get from point A to point B.
I'm just seeing. I think you need to pay for an extra version to see the side-on altitude plot of the flight. My apologies, but you can see a when I get out of this, 1 second. That is the whole flight. That's the rest of the route plotted. So you can see the whole journey that it's going to be making over the next just under 6 hours.
And you know what else? What's cool is that if you click on where it says "Show on Map," or if you you go to an older flight that's already happened, you can download the there's a file you can download and you can plot that on Google Earth, and it'll literally show you the flight path on Google Earth.
Yeah,
And it'll have all the GPS coordinates along the entire route.
Okay, if I could show you something interesting. Let's see. How do you share here? I probably can't because someone else is sharing.
Steven, do you need me to stop sharing for you to?
I don't see sharing. Let's see. Where'd you find it?
It's just at the bottom next to Mike. It's a little present button. If you should say present and then share screen.
Oh, here we go.
You got it. Okay. Are people all right for me to stop sharing for now?
That wasn't very helpful. Let's move it over here. There it is. Okay, if anyone can see that, let me know.
Let me just.
This is supposedly a flight tracker animation of the U.S. from morning, from the beginning of the day in the morning. It's super cool. But when he flips it on its side, it's even more interesting. So this is the waking United States. You'll start to recognize the hub cities as they become more trafficked. You'll see the flights, the date on here, and the flights being recorded. So it's just kind of fun. They look like ants. And when it's turned on its side, it shows the same version of things that we call flat that you guys call curved. And I was told that this isn't true to anything in terms of
No
ratio or anything. These are oversized blips. But this was fun for me to watch before it got into flat Earth. Just the way the hub cities filled up and the way flight traffic looks. There's almost 4,000 flights in the air right now. And for some reason, it's probably midday. It's down to only 2,000, 1,000. So what he does is he takes the same day and throws it on its side. And it just shows that ceiling of 36,000 feet in this architecture looks flat as shit, but that's probably cheating. It just looks cool.
Yeah, I don't think he was really trying to, I mean, yeah, I wouldn't.
In other words,
take that
it
for
looks
anything.
like there's a 38,000 foot ceiling across the whole thing, but of course,
yeah, it also looks like the airplanes are going damn near straight up and then flying across.
Well, they kind of do that. Kind of. They really like to get to altitude for efficiency.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that shows you how exaggerated it is, huh?
Yeah, that will have been exaggerated for demonstration purposes, but
So
no,
I
it is
wonder if the ceiling is way further up or way further down.
scale wise way further down scale wise.
Anyway, cool image, regardless, whatever, you know. It
Yeah,
shows.
because I was just gonna say because a normal attack angle is about what 8 to 10 degrees. So
You're helping me a great deal because I wanted to challenge PhD Tony on his meteorological, not meteorological data, seismological data that I felt, hey, this guy could be fooled. You know, this guy could be just given a data set, and we'd have to check his data points to believe what he could be a tool. He also works for oil. So I'm like, fuck, what if they just give him this machine, tell him to talk about this, and this is what he does, and be happy?
Come on, Dan, really?
Well, I'm saying here I have something to check when we're looking at the flight paths. Like he said, Rocket Man said they come over his house when they're supposed to. So this data set seems to be heavily verifiable compared to me trying to put together all those other stations across the world. This seems heavily monitored already, and therefore I would say that this is all pretty much valid data. I don't see how to doubt this data set, which is what you need to hear from me, right?
Yeah, it's a very honest
right. Yeah. Right, and then again, this is not the only flight. There are several other flights that do the same thing. You know, you can look at the distance, you can look at the time, and it always checks out. You know, like you do the look. You can map out the time, map out the distance on Google Earth between 2 points or between 2 airports. You know, and then use the regular speed of an aircraft to see, okay, it should take this aircraft going this speed to go this distance, you know, in this amount of time.
Well, except when you include the tangential speeds. For instance, Chicago and LA, they're going to have a difference in speed.
Yes, but not a measurable amount, Dan.
Oh no,
not that much.
Fucking amount. It's about 200 miles an hour.
Yeah, but you're stretching that 200 miles an hour over how many miles, Dan?
Exactly. But when I ask about it, I get an array of answers as to how it's accounted for, and that's where
you're spreading that over thousands of miles.
Mm-hmm.
So we're talking about the tangential speed of one latitude to another latitude, right? But that speed is spread out over thousands and thousands of miles, so it's not really going to be that much of a problem for an aircraft.
Well, how is it achieved?
I mean, they just stay over the same track, the same air track over the ground. They don't have to speed up. They're just following the same air track.
And it's actually the air they're in that changes speeds.
I guess you could say that.
You're right.
But again, it's not much. It's not much.
Right.
It's not much of a difference.
That was a trap you did not fall into. Thank you. You're a good guy. You're smart. That was a trap that you did not fall into, because most people make up reasons why at different waypoints they made adjustments, and why when they landed they suddenly made the adjustment there and they sped up and they made a left the whole time. You're right. There is no adjustment. You're very smart. Most people fall for that, and it's a good trick to know, because people make shit up, and the fact that you and I are here not making shit up is why we're talking. I appreciate you a lot. I'm sorry I can't bring a shit show. I can if you want. Rocket Man, do you want to start something?
Yeah, start talking about refraction.
I was gonna say it'll happen once we bring that up.
Yeah, the comments seem quite healthy at the moment, but no, I was just gonna say with the latitude effect, it's also like there may be quite a large difference from point A to point B, but the amount of time it takes to go from one latitude of tangential speed to the other is also very significant in the fact, it's not how big of a difference is. It's the rate of change of that difference over a period of time, which people seem
But
to.
more importantly, the air that you're in is supposedly made the change, so you don't have to make any adjustments as a pilot.
Yeah, because you're using it as thrust. It's not ballistic, so of
It's
course.
actually like a drift or a current, sort
Yeah,
of.
yeah.
But boy, people make up excuses like when they get caught on that, and they're like, "Well, at different waypoints, they check in and they adjust, and no, they're banking left the whole way, and they it's pretty good." I still believe that a north-south runway is a phenomenon. I don't understand why, when you do a go-round, that you haven't negated all other things. If you did a 1 mile square, seems that you could look at the earth beneath you and understand that you did a square around that, and that you had complete control of speeds and directions. It just seems very bizarre to think that you could land on a north-south runway. Seems pretty bizarre.
I would probably have to see like a drawn up or a.
It requires that you maintain at the speed you took off at. So regardless of you're going around and shit, you're still drifting at the speed you took off at, regardless of your maneuvers.
Yeah, because the atmosphere moves with the Earth, then it doesn't matter. You're not drifting, and the size of the runway, it's negligible. You've got more deviation in terms of minute air.
But if the atmosphere really moved with the Earth, I don't know. I don't see that much evidence of that.
The best way I could describe it is, obviously it's not to scale, but get a bucket of paint or water, whatever, get a paint mixer and just put it in the middle and start mixing. At first, the inner and the outer portions of the bucket are going to be going at different rates, but if you do it long enough, you'll see the outer, the bits of water on the outer part of the bucket will start moving at the same angular rate as the inner bucket, given a long enough time because of conservation of momentum. And now, given the globe model is billions of years old and it's got billions of years for friction to catch and for conservation of momentum to take place, it doesn't seem too far of a stretch to, believe. But yeah.
Well, I can appreciate how we might not recognize anything but acceleration in terms of movement. But
yes,
there probably is a bit of, aside from our rotation, there's also our orbital position changes. Like, I think like in an airplane, an inside loop and an outside loop. Sometimes we're inside the turn and sometimes we're on the outside of the turn.
Yeah, I mean, that would be like a much more minute effect because this 360-degree turn is taking an entire year. The force is going to be like, imagine you're doing a turn, a bank on a motorway or wherever, and it takes you an entire year to do a 360. Like, whether you're on the inside of that turn or the outside of that turn, it's not going to make much of a difference. Like, you're not going to notice a degree a day of angular change whether you're on the inside of the turn or the outside of the turn, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah, because with all this, it's very important, which a lot of Globers trying to reiterate, is it's angular speed we're worried about, not linear.
Okay, I guess I could set up my current argument on refraction these days because I really felt that the flat earthers were wrong about something, and I know that my assumption of standard refraction was that it was a overall average of what conditions might be out there, and it's not. It's more like the rating of a sheet of glass, for instance, in your car. If you didn't have tinted windows, if you had no window, that would be nothing, and that's an equivalent on the refraction index to a vacuum. There's no resistance for your eyes whatsoever. Yeah. And as we go to regular air, it's like putting up a piece of glass that has no tinting whatsoever. You're looking through something that's a little less opaque, but generally you can see right through it. If we were to stack these pieces of glass, or if I was to look across a distance, I would have a gradient. I would have now a density to this vision. I'm looking across a more denser each increment.
Yeah.
So, but generally, when we talk about refraction, or people talk about refraction, it's different. They're not talking about density, really. They're talking about what we call atmospheric refraction in terms of layers and heights of pressures and temperatures that are gradient based on materials and weight, or whatever you define it as, is stacked in layers, like the gradient tower, or the is that what it's called, the gradient tower? You know, with the
Yeah, I think that's what it's commonly known as. Yeah.
So I've learned now the difference between atmospheric refraction and what might be causing the bend of the light below the atmosphere. When I mean below the atmosphere, where no longer there's a vertical gradient at the bottom, I'm going to have the peak of all the pressures and temperatures at the bottom, where in fact boundary refraction between the bottom and wherever, you know, we are, water or land, that's going to start to be a bigger factor than the little bits of air right here.
Yeah.
So we've worked from 20 feet and walked down to 2, and I didn't write down each observation. Therefore, they say I don't have a measurement of the refraction across there. And I'm pissed because I do have an observation across the medium, but no recording of such. And then the same thing when we did it in a different location at night, when we have 70 inches on one side and 70 on the other. And then, where's my camera? And then we walk down to the water on one side. And so the entire variation of vertical gradient is only 70 inches.
Yeah.
So I can try and eliminate vertical refraction from the equation if I can be convinced that I'm below many of these variables and in the densest point of it.
Yeah, I mean, see, when you get to that kind of boundary layer condition, the influences of the properties of the substance that the atmosphere is over plays a much bigger role, like you said, than anything above it. You know, if you're looking over a body of water that's a couple of miles away, there are going to be different water temperatures. There's going to be tiny little currents and stuff like that. There's all sorts of things.
Then weather, and
then
everything else. Exactly.
Which is why it's so hard to get a definite sort of this is how we're going to see, because there's so many minute variables that change it to have a massive effect.
But I found
out.
Really
quick, gentlemen, I apologize. I have to get out of here.
Shit. All right.
Something just came up. I appreciate the discussion, Dan. Cool. Rocket Man, Demon, but I got to get out of here.
Thank you for coming.
No problem.
That was like
a run away like a Glober.
Behind the back handoff there. It was like a no look handoff.
Past the batter, yeah.
That was sweet.
I will be honest, I don't know an awful lot of refraction. I haven't.
Nobody does. So
no, it's
does.
So I mean, I will be able to talk generally, but if it does go over to something that I'm not gone in, I don't want to say, oh yeah, this is how it works, because I don't have a fucking clue, and it'll be really embarrassing because all the Globers will look at me and go, Phil, what the fuck are you talking about?
No, but actually, we're coming to agreements, which is even more, more important than anything. So you understand that there is definitely atmospheric refraction, but down low, the dominant factor may be the surface temperature more than the difference between 1 and 2 feet of air, and and the density as well probably happens at larger things than a meter or 2.
Yeah, which is why we have a lot of refraction calculators that take in, the temperature of the substance beneath the air and the density and all these different conditions.
I think it is the pressure and the temperature combined that combine as density, what they call the density gradient. I believe there's a couple of things combined there between pressure and temperature that result in density. The density will change based on pressure and temperature.
Yeah.
So that's where it gets confusing, because there's so many even layers within that. But what you hit on, I needed to hit on really hard, is that boundary refraction between the surface and the fucking air is going to make a big difference compared to the air in the air, particularly in minute amounts,
Yeah, which
within
is
a meter or something.
where I think these debates in the past have hit a kind of brick wall, is because, globalists are saying, like, look, we need to take in the account of the water and all the like currents right above the water into a massive account, whereas the other side have been going, let's take what's slightly above it into account to bring it down. We've been coming from different angles.
Mm-hmm.
And stuff.
So it's been important for me noting that we've done a whole bunch of these line of sight things, and they're saying it's refraction. And it's like, okay, let's talk about it finally. And for them to want me to go up, like you're saying, I really need to come down to compare it to water, because water supposedly is the comparison. They're saying the surface is bending, whether it's water or not. The surface is bending, therefore the light must be bending, because we're seeing the results.
Yeah.
And the claim of refraction had us confused. We thought it meant that they were just throwing a number out there, and we confused standard refraction with average refraction. And it's a huge mistake we made, because it's taken us this long to understand even the phrase and what it means. Now that I understand what that is, it is what they call a lapse rate. If we go through enough layers of glass, it'll slow down the light. So enough gradients, enough sections of air will slow down light. But this speed difference doesn't account for an elevation change. It's normally this difference of temperature that causes things to move through the rising air, basically. The air is rising, then cold air is going to rush down to replace that, and the light trapped in the middle of that is now bent, and then it favors to that side. So you actually have to have two factors colliding within the light area. And so that's what refraction is. It's a difference in timing across the beam, where it starts like this, but it starts hitting some shit like me, and it drags on one side, and next thing you know, it'll favor towards the side that it's slower. And so that's what a lapse rate that's uneven might cause. My contention is I'm not got no vertical to deal with. I'm going through the same density, so therefore only standard refraction will accumulate, because I forgot, I'm claiming no temperature change on the surface, because we've worked in areas where sometimes we have equal water and air temperature. Yeah. So I'm going, fuck, sometimes it's 83 degrees in the water and 83 degrees in the air Fahrenheit. Sometimes it's 60 degrees in the water and 60 in the air. And other times it's 83 in the air and 63 in the water. So it's like, it's been kind of all over the place. Therefore, we got to wonder, okay, are those factors, and they only are in terms of density, really. They're not in terms of themselves. We have to have moving air in something to cause vertical lift or vertical dive. And my claim is that I'm below the normal vertical gradient. I'm going across one medium, even at the densest portion of the atmosphere at the bottom. Therefore, the only gradient will be space, more of it. And that we've yet to include a variable for direction change, because the only variable in the refractive index is timing. We've lost some time. So I'm like suddenly realizing, fuck, I think the ball's got nothing here yet to cause the light to bend. And when they do insert some variables, whether they're artificially created, measured, or predicted, and we've already gone through that and find that you got to make it go exactly 8 inches per mile squared. If your calculations are off, you're going to shoot above us or below us into the water. To get to the other side, it has to be an accurate calculation. I don't see any way you can do that with all the variety of light sources and such. So I'm blown away now that I got some like big, strong legs to stand on, or one leg to stand on. Is wow, can you explain the cause of the bending? Because just the lapse rate doesn't cause a direction change. it causes a speed change. Now think of it this way: a bullet might drop, like on the when it slows down. So does light do that when it slows down? Is that what we're seeing? We'd have to analyze that like crazy.
Yeah,
That's complicated shit.
yeah, and also there's the whole element of depth, because like you'll have a condition, if we're going from this point, let me change my background so you can actually see my hands. If you're starting from here and going to here, the condition at point A will be this temperature, this pressure, this density, whatever. But then you'll go further along and it'll be completely different. And the more depth of field you're looking, the further in the distance, the more chance of variation from point A to point B to your final destination of those conditions, which will, change it again. It's a constantly changing medium. It's not just you measure at this point, it's going to be the same from your observation all the way to your target object. It's going to be changing the entire way. And which is why we have refraction calculators that take all these variables in that you have to probe and find the exact conditions for to be able to get an accurate result. We don't just say, there's a standard refraction and stuff, but if you want a real accurate measurement, you have to probe all these values in to be able to get a realistic image of what's happening. And you need to have a real good idea of what's happening from your eyes all the way to the target object and all the little changes along the way to be able to get a more, accurate picture of what's happening, which is very difficult.
Hey, I see you got a space shuttle in your screen there.
I do indeed. I've got a Saturn V and an ISS as well. I'm a little.
Can I go there? You want to go? You want to stay on refraction, or do you want to go where your love is there?
Yeah, go for it. I'm studying aerospace engineering, so it is a part of my life. Yeah.
What we jump on all the time is usually ignorant, but sometimes it's an inconsistency. If we do further research, we could probably clean it up ourselves. But sometimes we're like, what the fuck? This doesn't look right. I like looking at the Gemini missions and other stuff and looking at the size of the Earth in relation to the height, and stuff like that. And I'm always comparing it to the general height of the ISS because that gives me a mental image.
Yeah.
So what's infuriating to me is that everyone says, just go look, there's a live cam of the Earth and the ISS. And sometimes there's portions of the Earth there, and sometimes it's off. And when we're used to your mental image of nighttime images of the Earth from the ISS are post-production with lightning, city lights, or an air glow, and things they don't normally see without some dramatic something, because they don't show that, for instance, 6 times a day or whatever, So when it comes to why don't they show something at night, it's making me crazy because the shuttle used to have an infrared cam when the bay was open.
Yeah.
And there was fucking anomalies a lot. There was shit to see. So I'm thinking, these fuckers aren't putting an infrared cam on the ISS, and they're punishing me with darkness, claiming, oh, well, we're just waiting for the, it's like, why not just show what you could show? And that's a dramatic boo-boo, if you ask me. That's a boo-boo. That's a 12-hour a day robbery for me.
Yeah, what they normally do when they go into orbital nighttime is they'll just pay some past recording, of clips going over some nice pretty shots they got during the day or whatever and stuff. And people look at this and like, oh, look, there's inconsistency. No, it's intentional. They do just put some pre-recorded clips on while you're in orbital night because it's about 45 minutes of fuck all nothingness. You can't really see.
But you could really see, though. You could really see. That's my point. It doesn't take much for me to prove that. You could. You could. That's where I'm like, I'll fucking get you guys. Because that's there's no excuse for it. You could say anything you want. There's no excuse for that one.
I guess from their perspective, they want what's going to keep the viewers in. And although you'd probably, I know. I'm just speaking from potentially, not absolute. I'm not speaking on their behalf. You know, whereas we're probably interested in be like seeing what we can see during the nighttime, all the city lights, all the different things. They're probably thinking most of the people who watch this aren't that interested in seeing not a lot of anything, and you know, will want to see some pretty pre-recording we got earlier in the day. You know, I assume, you know, I'm not speaking on their behalf. It's probably like a, you know, because as much as people want to claim they don't care about proving the earth, you know, in their eyes, it's been done for thousands of years. They're not here to show anything or prove anyone wrong. They just want to show people the prettiest things they can, you know, because people are like, oh, very pretty space and stuff. So they'll just put some pre-recorded stuff on to keep people interested.
Even though during the shuttle missions, we can see lots of cool stuff, like lots of cool stuff in the infrared spectrum.
Yeah.
I've been told that if you looked from Earth in the infrared spectrum with an old military, you know, orange screen or whatever they, you know, they used to have, that it's fantastic up there. So what if we're limiting ourselves to our light spectrum when there's a more to the world than that? There's more to it than I mean, don't you think they know? In other words, don't you think these guys know that there's more out there? That they got lots of footage of it? You've seen the tether. You've seen the tether incident, right? Is that STS-75?
I think so. Yeah.
Well, you'd know because there's living creatures out there, so you definitely should be interested in STS-75 and the infrared cameras. You know, it's dramatic. I mean, it's fucking wild.
I would love to have infrared camera streams on the ISS. Like, I'm not saying that they shouldn't. Like, I absolutely want them. I think it would be beautiful. If you want, message the YouTube channel and say, hey, you know, your next supply mission, slap an infrared camera up on there so we can see it.
That's how easy it would be too. It would literally slap it up there.
It would be a very good question for the Flat Earth. Like, I've asked them to
it'd be a great addition. Wouldn't it be a great addition?
It would be a great addition. And for those who question the validity of it, it would be a very big question mark. You know, I've asked for it to be put up there, and now it is up there on this stream, you know, get people thinking and stuff. But no, it'd be great.
I think they're showing transitions to day and night where they used to not show that because they didn't want to mess with it. But now that I think they show transitions, because that's where we have to be careful as flat earthers, is making an old claim and we look stupid because they do fix stuff. You know, we make the claim, it gets fixed, and we run around making the claim, and then you bring it up and we look stupid. You know, so there is some repair work that gets done. I think if we went now, we will see something closer to a transition to day and night. Something closer.
Yeah. I mean, there's also, is this sort of on your side seeing the validity of the ISS actually existing, or what is your stance on it?
Say it again.
What is your stance on the ISS? Is it the validity of it existing? Is it what they're doing? Is it if there's people on there? Like, what is your exact stance?
I'm going to go with unmanned. I'm going to have to look to redefine what I think a satellite might be. I met a satellite engineer who was old school. It was like, the guy had no reason to be lying to me, you know?
Yeah.
And it would be complicated for him to be fooled. He was totally involved with trajectories and adjusting for the offset each time they came around. He was really proud of his calculations. He talked to me about onboard fuels, which I didn't think there were onboard fuels in satellites. Now I know why there's so many dead satellites. They're no longer staying in the right orbit because they've run out of fuel. It's like, oh, you know. Then I realized all that shit at, let's say, up to 22,000 feet was way fucking close compared to the moon. And I'm like, fuck, all that space junk and everything, but nothing really transits. So I'm like, fuck, I'm looking at the transit of the ISS, and I'm looking at the size of the panels, and I'm thinking, you could see the Hubble, you know? It's like you could. And one of the problems next is the other stuff that's big like Hubble, 45 feet. It's spy satellites. They don't really show that. And so when you see something in infrared from the ISS and we're going, fuck, look, it could be just a spy satellite that they're not wanting us to see. So they went black a lot.
Yeah.
They went black, and here I am claiming it's a UFO, and it's not. Same thing with the moon missions. A lot of the UFOs in moon missions, the original Apollo, was Russian satellite shit going by. And here we're claiming, oh, there's already people on the moon. It's like, you know, there was already satellites up there, supposedly. So today I see the word satellite being sort of changed up, where they're including balloons in orbit with satellites. And it's like, wait a minute, those words don't belong together when I grew up. And now they're becoming normal. So I think they're sort of teaching us not to be surprised by balloons, nor to call that an orbit. When something has its own circuit, what I would call a circuit, they're kind of calling an orbit now. Even by definition, I'm getting fucked up.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's been, I mean, if I was to point you in the direction, I would say there's, I don't know if you've seen, there's been live videos of people recording the SpaceX Dragon capsules actually docking with the ISS, and seeing them, capturing a photo of them pre-launch, post-launch, and then, you know, a few months later after they're due to depart and it's not there anymore in the docking bay. You know, people have gotten live videos of the Dragon capsule approaching the ISS from the Earth and seeing it dock and that, which does leave a lot of questions hanging and a lot of answers that aren't, you know, addressed in terms of if it's manned and that. It's like, you know, they'll say, oh, all the stuff from space is CGI and fake and stuff, and it's like, well, people have getting it from the ground, you know, that without any organization, without any government, anything, just someone with a really nice telescope and some recording equipment have gotten images. I'll try and find them here, or little clips of these rockets that have been videoed launching, actually approaching and docking with the ISS and leaving. And when they look back at the ISS, it's not there anymore, you know, and we can see it re-enter and stuff. It's all live for everyone to watch. You know, they're not hiding.
Have you ever seen how they get home? Like the little ball they jump into and parachute home?
Yeah. Little modules they go up in, yeah.
It doesn't seem very space-like. I think they burn up. I think that's silly. I think that's way silly. But they just jump home like that. I don't see any reason to believe that, really. Especially because they get in wearing their little golf leisure suits and they get out wearing different suits. Then have you seen the landings where they run up with the lawn chairs and the foil blankets as if they're needy, and it's like a photo op, quick.
Well, I mean, with the different suits, I would have to see. I've not heard of that one. That's a new one. With the lawn chairs, I mean, for those astronauts, no, they'll have spent weeks or if not months, half a year in space, and you do experience a lot of muscle fatigue and decrease in bone density. So you can't walk, and you know, you're so used to being in a zero-G environment, you will just fall to the ground. You know, there's plenty of interviews with astronauts that have come back just like showing a demonstration, just dropping shit because they expect it to just like hang there and stuff. So that's really my explanation of why those things are there. In terms of the actual descent modules, they've been tested. You know, they've got deflagrating, what's it called? Heat shields that burn off intentionally to take away energy.
Could you imagine that ride? Could you imagine that ride with the fucking flames bursting around you on all sides, glowing, and imagine the sounds and shit?
Yeah, it must be amazing.
Why don't they show that? They should show that. Actually, that's a new argument. I just got a new argument.
Well, the plasma that's generated due to re-entry is disrupting all signal, which is why during re-entry they have no signal with the pod. You know, they're just crossing their fingers and fucking hoping nothing bad happens, essentially. But no, it'd be great to get onboard footage or recorded, you know, handheld footage of it happening. A great POV shot.
As you know, we're going crazy because we never see one shot. We never see the ball appearing. on the way up or the way down. They cut it both times with Artemis. And it's like, no, we were so looking forward to ripping apart
Yeah.
that, and we didn't even get a chance to see what we would have called, what you guys say we would have called fake anyway.
Yeah. I mean, another interesting thing in the next few years, I don't know if you've heard, the ISS is coming back down. They're deorbiting the ISS, which is
They have to. They have
Well,
to.
yeah.
They can't justify it anymore. I mean, they don't make sandwiches, they don't make babies, they don't make bunny rabbits, they don't get anything done. They don't. I can't imagine, based on the way it looks and what we know, based on current technology with, let's say, a fighter, you can't get enough technology in it to be current by the time it's out there. In the 4 years it takes to go out there, the shit's already outdated. Like the avionics, what they talk about with planes now, is by the time they get it to production, there's already better shit out. It's really hard to produce anything. Now, in other words, that shit's what, 16 years old? Something like that?
What, the ISS?
Yeah.
Much older than 16.
But it's old, that's what I mean. The shit's old.
It is.
Remember, they've got unserviceable O-rings. They've got things that are unserviceable.
Oh, no, you're right. Main construction was between 1998 and 2011.
So it is. They've got components of it that are unserviceable. So you got.
Yeah. There's definitely they're losing the cost of repairs and refueling and doing all these orbital maintenance burns and stuff is getting quite costly, and it's losing its practicality. So I think they said something like 2036 they're going to deorbit it, which would be an amazing sight to see over Point Nemo, where they deorbit their kind of largest satellites and stuff. But I would love to see the flat Earth argument when they see the ISS coming down in a giant fireball in front of everyone's eyes. Well, I think it's probably.
I think Jaron proved to the flat earthers that there was an object up there several years ago. Pretty sure that argument, something's there.
Well, they know that something is there. It's just what it actually is, and if people are actually in it is still a question.
That was nice of you to say.
I mean, we know. I mean, but it's a question for you guys still. Like, what is it, and people are actually in it.
Demon, can I invite Ruhif here?
Oh, absolutely.
If you want 3-on-1, absolutely.
Well, I mean, he's trying to chat with me and things. Can you reach out to him? Tell him that.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
That's
yeah, I can try.
That hoax guy in the chat likes to talk the talk, but I've personally invited him to see if he wants to walk the walk now.
Wait, who's that?
Hoax. I don't know who he is. I've never seen him before, but
No, it's probably a stock account. Yeah, he's been rough. He's been rough, right?
Yeah. I'm seeing if he's gonna talk the talk.
Yeah, invite Ruhif.
Yeah.
But no, you're not the only Rocket Man, right? You're not the guy I usually give shit to. Call it.
No, there's a guy over in Gems who calls himself
Rocket Scientist.
Yeah.
Rocket Scientist. Right.
I think he actually works for NASA or something like that.
Oh, right.
We had a flat Earth guy called the Rocket Man. And
really?
Yeah, he was a Rocketeer. He was actually a stuntman, and has the reputation of being the most popular flat earther there was, but the guy wasn't really a flat earther. It's weird. He got a lot of press and a lot of interest, but he was just a stuntman. Mad Mike Hughes, Mad Mike.
Oh yeah.
Oh
so
yeah.
He has a film called The Rocket Man about
it. Yeah, he died.
Yeah, bless him. Yeah, but no, it's like what I like to, because I'm studying aerospace engineering, I want to work in rocket propulsion, jet propulsion, all that sort of stuff. So it's like, as I'm going through my degree and stuff, I'm finding more and more things. Because I quite like when I went over at 24/7 a few months ago and they were debating me how rockets don't work in space. And I was just, trying to break it down for them, but they weren't having any of it. But I know 24/7 is a bit of a rougher place to be. But no, Dan, I'm loving the conversation we're having. I'm over at MMM a lot, and the conversations are turn a bit south quite quickly. I've seen before the
Well,
dumpster fires,
I'm
but I'm
tired.
enjoying it.
I'm tired of the fighting over dumb little words. It's really good to do with the British. They do this a lot. It's like, are you using words? It's like, well, yes, I am. Well, I'm sure you know what a sentence is. Well, of course I do. Well, why don't you use a sentence then? It's like, I was using sentences. Oh, well, all I hear is it's ongoing paragraph, and you're droning on. And it's like, well, it started with, why don't you speak? Then can you speak? Do you know what speak is? It gets pretty far from the subject pretty fast. So
Right.
we've moved through subjects. I got lucky, B-Ball. I got out of the realm of the close local air travel and moved out into space, where I knew more. I had more weapons.
Rufy says 5 minutes.
All right, cool.
Oh,
I had more
that's-
shit to say about space, more shit I could question than I could about air travel.
Well, yeah. I mean, well, the cool thing about space is that, like, nowadays, if you got the right amount of money, of course, you can go there yourself. And in a few years, like, it'll start getting cheaper and cheaper and cheaper. So,
Yeah.
I mean, to be a flat earther and you got actual friends who have been to space and have seen the curvature of the Earth, that's going to be kind of difficult, for flat earthers in the future. But hey, I mean, I'm
I'm
sure there'll still be people that will still believe it.
I'm lucky. I'm one of the few dudes that's going to tell you I don't give a fuck in the shape of the Earth. The reason why I like to use I want a political party called the Flat Party for love and truth, kind of like a hippie movement or a green movement.
Oh, I saw that message. Yeah.
And it's like, I don't know if we're even in physical space, man. Like, whatever it ends up being, it is. But I still got the same problems with who kind of took away the liberties that we thought the U.S. stood for and shit. And there's like a mark in time that I always talk about being like when it happened. And I don't know how far goes it back to the Romans or the Jesuits and shit. But I know in my era, it's 1959. And a lot of shit happened at the time NASA came in. A lot of other shit came in. And it seems to me like the deal was kind of sealed up and TV pushed everyone into this kind of magical product-driven world that we grew up in, with Fruit Loops and shit, where everything's pretty cool. You got a prize in your cereal, dude. Like, right. That's pretty exciting shit. They kind of got us all mesmerized in that,
Yeah. I mean, like I said, I believe that I honestly believe that most like flat earthers now are either too embarrassed to admit that they've been wrong for a long time, and are just like, they're kind of just hanging on for maybe something to come up. But at this point, you got to say, like, you know what? Yeah, I think I've been wrong for the past few years. I've been fed this idea, and I want this idea to be true so bad because I've been working for so long. But it's just, no matter which way you look, there's always going to be globe evidence. There's always going to be something that has to do with the globe somewhere, and it's just always going to match the model that we put forward, no matter what you do.
Yeah, and
people are gonna believe what they want to believe, but the reality is always going to match. It's going to match the model.
But there are a couple things we could do. We could get a camera from the moon. We could get a satellite image of the Earth and moon working together. It'd be cool to see home. I mean, some shit like that. Seeing the Earth appear on the next Artemis, seeing it appear on the way down. Some shit would be doable that isn't
But
crazy.
Dan, but
That shit ain't
honestly,
crazy.
but Dan, honestly, even if
Yeah,
even if
we're gonna
those
say
things
it's
were
fake.
done,
Yeah, we're gonna say it's fake.
exactly.
But you guys don't even try, man. So that's different. And we were talking about that with the ISS before, because the blackout at night's not necessary. They used to put an infrared on the shuttle.
Yeah, but it's, I think the blackout on the ISS is because they're trying, maybe they're trying to save bandwidth.
Whatever
it could
it
be
is,
that,
it's an excuse.
but you're not
It's
really
an
going to see
excuse,
much.
whatever it is.
You're not really going to see much at nighttime. You might.
No,
you might see,
man. No, it's an excuse. Don't make up an excuse.
No,
Don't do
okay. But I'm gonna speculate, right? So there's the website that you can look up many different videos from the ISS, right? Pictures also, and you can they do have videos that are from at night.
I know we went through this earlier. That's post production. They don't show that shit live. So we went through a whole section of this earlier. We did talk about that. That shit's post production, and the fact is, if they're gonna do any weird shit for half the time, 12 hours, they could just fucking run that infrared cam like they used to on the bay of the shuttle. So it's not. It doesn't need an excuse or a reason. I'm telling you, as an American, that I know, as Rocket Man said, simply, we could just slap something up there.
So,
we could bring it next time and slap it up there.
What about
this?
I'm sorry.
Yeah, sorry. What I was just quickly saying about that is that when we go into orbital nighttime, what they often do is just put some pre-recorded videos on of during the day, any cool videos while we're in orbital nighttime, and then once we go to orbital morning again, it goes back to live, just to keep the viewers interested and stuff, because that's really what the YouTube channel's for.
Right. What about this, Dan? What if, let's say, for instance, this would be ammunition for you guys, right? Let's say we're looking at the ISS feed, and we're looking at the clouds. You know how during the daytime the camera's facing down, we're looking at the clouds. We're looking at a specific place in the Pacific, and we're looking at cloud formations, right? And we're like, okay, let's see if those cloud formations match what we see in Himawari.
Mm-hmm.
If you compare those two and they didn't match, that would be ammunition for your side.
Yeah, there's generally a 10-minute delay on the Himawari stuff, and generally what you have to imagine at some point, Roo! When did you come?
Go ahead.
You have to imagine at some point there is national security involved, and there is going to be a delay, just like live TV is generally on a 7-second delay. You're going to find that I think everything is filtered and slapped onto the ball. So like your local weather news shows larger than your local area, it pieces together radar data. And I think that that's easy to do today with any image. It's just globe it.
We're talking
just like
about
a rasterized button on your Photoshop. Just globe it and it goes.
Yeah, but we're talking about live cloud formations from the ISS. Go on Himawari and see if they match or not.
Like I said, within that 10-minute delay, I think all processing could be done.
I mean,
really, Dan, over a specific place in the Pacific?
Hey, you're the guy that was making up reasons why we can't put a fucking infrared camera in the air.
No, you can do that, and there's no reason we couldn't do that. But what I'm saying is live images from the ISS, right? If they didn't match, then you guys would have something to argue about. But the problem is they always match.
And
we're talking about two different things from two. We got one from the Himawari 8 which is from China or no Japan? I'm sorry, Japan, right?
Yeah.
And then the ISS, which is United States.
And not only
totally different entities.
And not only that, they've actually been used to spot natural disasters like wildfires, weather, like storm formations. Like they've been used to spot these things before anyone else can, to warn, coastal regions to evacuate. Or when that volcano happened in the middle of the ocean, you could see it live from Himawari as it was erupting, and you can see the plume formation. And it's like there is no radar or anything to show us that, to give us that image that is live as we see it from the Himawari, which is exactly what we saw from coastal observations.
Right. Well, anyway, that's an interesting topic, but I think We got Ruhif here. I'm
Hey,
sure you'd
people.
like to talk about. You guys want to talk about refraction? I'm sure. What do
I'm
you
sure
think?
Dan does.
Yeah,
I'll always talk about fraction.
Ruhif, I'm wondering if you could do me a quick favor and put your hands up, sort of like the football touchdown guy. You know, go like you know, like
Right.
It's good.
actually, if you could put the screen back the way it was, Demon, it'd be great. And if you could twinkle your fingers like this.
Oh God.
Jazz hands.
I just want to do it. Never mind. I'm so happy to see you, is what I mean.
Yay.
Yeah.
We haven't chatted for a few weeks, have we? I've been pretty busy. at home.
Longer. I'm so excited. I have fucking great news for you.
You're a blogger?
There's always a gradient.
Yes.
And standard refraction always exists.
I wouldn't say standard refraction always exists.
At least. Right? That's why it's called standard.
Well, standard just is like typical conditions. Right.
Actually, it's not related to conditions. It's related to the opaqueness of the air. It's not really related to conditions. It's a standard. You know, in other words, it's the standard being if your car window was down and I'm looking at you out the side and there's no window, that would be a vacuum. There's nothing there. When there's air, the composition of mostly like nitrogen and some oxygen, that's what they call standard. It's the normal. And that normal that you call always being a gradient would be each step of distance between us increases the density between us of that factor. As a matter of fact, that factor representing eventually it'll slow down the light, which is a lapse rate.
Yeah, the lapse rate is vertical.
No, not necessarily.
Yeah, that's it by definition is vertical.
Really? But how okay, I mean by definition there's always a vertical gradient too.
Yes. Well,
all right, so let's start there. Exactly. So let's start there.
There is always a vertical gradient, yes.
Atmospheric refraction generally refers to the stacks of different types of air that are at different pressures, different temperatures, and generally what will happen is you'll get different pressures and temperatures combining to give the air a different density.
Yep, and humidity as well, yep.
Fuck, if I didn't understand all of this in the past, and I apologize greatly.
Oh, hang on, I got to turn camera off.
And
Camera's
he's talking to his daughter, so it's not fair.
Now my daughter comes in and she
shut up!
Oh, there we go.
That's a baller. She's gonna be a baller. Look at that, man. She's gonna be a baller.
Camera is off.
Great.
Hey, how you doing?
You never.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah.
That didn't sound
Oh,
good.
Ruben.
In the doghouse.
Yeah. I mean,
You're always talking to flat earthers online. God damn it.
you stupid fuck.
Every day.
Rue, let me go forward. Correct me when I'm wrong, because I really appreciate you more than ever because I have someone to talk to. You have to imagine when I talk to flat earthers now, they just tell me I'm a baller.
Okay.
Yes, there is refraction. And what my suggestion is going to be, by the way, you and I haven't spoken at all, but Bislin had chimed in and then chimed out. So I'm getting some weird mixed messages there. So I don't know whether to listen to what he says or if I'm being set up and stuff. But it was so exciting to try and get him involved. You know, of course, I tried to get everyone together, and that's still my goal. Is I'd like to get you and him and Jay Tolan and McToon and all the goofballs in one place to make some decisions on what we're really looking at, because now there's some good definitions. We were wrong. Our team did not understand the word standard. We thought it meant average, and it's far from it.
Typical, yes. Typical.
No, it's a known value. That's why you say it's always there. Because if it were typical, I could prove that we get to situations where it's not there, and that's not the case. It's always there. So don't talk about both sides, because I'm on your side here so far. You can't say typical, because I'll then introduce, like I said, all the factors that I claim reduce it. Eventually, our first difference is going to be about vertical column, vertical gradient. Most discussions are definitely about that. And I'm going to realize the reason why I'm excited to talk to you is that when I start at 20 feet and walk down to 2 feet to make sure I'm still maintaining the observation, I think that if I'd written that down in each increment, that would count as a measurement. Now, you can say yes or no, but the question eventually is, well, how much gradient was there in 20 feet? More importantly, gradient what? Was it really more about pressure, or was it more about temperature? Because those are the factors that cause the density. So I'm going to suggest that when we work under a meter, which we have, and achieve line of sight, that I'm at the most dense part, yes, but I'm at the bottom of the vertical gradient, where I'm going to claim that there is no vertical gradient. Now, if you want to claim there is, if you want to claim there is, make up some numbers all you want. What I'm going to tell you is that when you get down that low, is that the dominant factor is going to be boundary refraction between the surface and the air. No longer the air in the air is going to be an issue when you're down that far. It's going to be the surface you're dealing with, establishing a new temperature or a new unstable zone, potentially, which is what you need for the bending of light. You need an unstable zone, a gradient.
No. So hang on. There is a gradient in that first meter. Is Demon, you're the mod, you're the owner of the stream. You're around LA, aren't you, Dan, somewhere?
I am. What does that have to do with Demon?
Oh, so we can share my thing. So this is Point Mugu, which is a bit west of LA, around
Point
Santa
Mugu.
Barbara.
Yes,
yeah, Point Mugu. Yep, somewhere around Santa Barbara, I think.
It's an air base above us. They have the annual air shows there and such.
Yeah, cool. So when you said the word standard, and I said typical, and you kind of said no, what I'm showing here are measurements of the gradient. Right. This is what I mean when I say typical. These dots clustered around this typical value. That's what I mean.
Okay, so if you're saying typical, I'm going to re-emphasize what I mean and then see if we're on the same page. Yep. We made the mistake of assuming the word standard was an average and that you were just throwing numbers out there. And what you're telling me now by saying typical is that is an average. And I'm going, that's not what's going on. That's not it.
I wouldn't say an average.
Air is air. Air is air until it gets thinner and you have different gases. That's what the index says. That's what the index is. Right?
It gets thinner, yeah. The composition doesn't really change, though.
What about density? Isn't that from when it's thinner, that's density in itself, right?
Yeah.
And what about temperature? Temperature as well. Does that just combine somewhere into density, or do you get to keep them separate?
They all combine into a density.
Got you. Okay, so let's talk about it. When we're down low, can I eliminate any of the vertical when I get low enough, knowing that the dominant factor is going to be boundary refraction, the temperature difference between the surface and the air? No longer is the air and the air going to be a factor when I get that low. We can test that. I'd just like you to allow me to assume that, since I've worked with equal temperatures of air and surface of different degrees, both 63 degrees and 83 degrees each, but we've also worked in the same location where they don't match. So my suggestion is going to be that it's not that important. And I'm going to ask you, do you agree eventually with the boys, which is Jesse Gordon and Shoebill, that eventually 0.13 of a degree Celsius, or a half a degree, is all you're going to really need to get around to 8 inches per mile squared? That's what they're saying in the end of this conversation. But let me just say what I need to tell you is I'm apologizing for not understanding anything about refraction. I'm going to describe to everyone what I think atmospheric refraction has usually been in the vertical. If I eliminate it, there's still standard refraction because we're looking through air. Air's not clear. So imagine
That's not refraction, though. You've.
it is refraction.
There's like been 10 things I've wanted to respond to.
You're confused, yes, because you want me to ignore that there has to be a different elapse rate across the beam for it to curve. Now,
No.
you've yet to show a gradient that favors any direction. Your gradient is in thickness or density. Now, where is direction coming into play? Because the gradient is as you move through more atmosphere. Now, tell me where you're getting the input, the cause of gradient. What is gradient now? Where's your temperature? You need temperature.
Oh, you've asked, like, there's been probably 20 points now where I've tried to had a point where I want to jump in on. The point, the observer to your target, that's irrelevant, right? The only thing that matters is the vertical gradient. To make it more accurate, you could take multiple measurements over that distance, right, and maybe take an average of those. But the only thing that matters is the vertical gradient.
Of which the dominant factor won't be below 2 meters. It won't be the air in the air. It's going to be the air on the surface. There's going to be, I believe that's what they call boundary refraction. I'm not sure. Yeah, but that's going to be the dominant factor for us to measure and play with. Right? That's what
yes, but yes, but I think you might be misunderstanding the impact of that. So
I think you're misunderstanding the difference between speed and direction. The lapse rate has to do with speed changing. And in order for there to be a direction change, there has to be a differential in the rate from one side of the beam to the other. This is what a lapse rate curve would be. In other words, an equal lapse rate is slowing down. It's about time. It's not about direction.
Yes, it is about direction.
You have to employ something else. Explain to me by what it's using to change direction. What is the action? What is the?
Do you know what's like? You know what Snell's law is, right?
I'm pretty sure know that there's a couple of different kinds of Snell's law, discrete and fucking weird pseudo definitions amongst that.
But you know, it's like a boundary condition.
No, I don't. Tell me about it.
Well, Snell's law is useful when you have something like light going from air to glass or air to water, those sort of things, right? You do a single...
Two mediums.
Yeah.
We don't have that, but go ahead.
I know. That's what Snell's law is useful for. All right. You can... It's not advisable, but you can treat the atmosphere as if it has those discrete boundary layers, right? It's not true in reality, but you can treat it that way and do multiple Snell's law calculations, right? Or you can use what you should use, which is Fermat's principle, right? So it's the principle of least time. Have you seen the analogy of Fermat's principle where you've got like a lifesaver on the beach trying to rescue someone out of the sea?
No, I spent all my time on Snell's law because you guys told me it was about Snell's law. That's what happened. Well, and I just want to go back
simplified.
But I want to go back through the path because it was refraction, gradient, lapse rate.
Yep.
Okay,
but we've got to get...
let's explain the difference so people understand. You know,
I got to explain Fermat's principle first, because that's what you should use for the atmosphere rather than Snell's law.
What about all this other crap you've been throwing at us?
Well, Snell's law, like for simplified purposes, yes, use Snell's law. It gives a good approximation.
And what about lapse rate?
Yeah, that's included. We'll get there. That's part of the gradient.
What about the different things that are gradient when you say gradient?
The gradient is composed of pressure, humidity, temperature, and CO2 content. They're the four components.
What is CO2 content? I'm not aware of that.
Carbon dioxide, 400 parts per million, global warming, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, so that's a factor, but it's usually set at a constant because no one really has any measurements of a CO2 gradient.
CO2. So you
Yeah,
mentioned it. So you mentioned it just to tease me, play with me.
Oh, it's a factor in the calculation.
Really?
In the formula. Yeah.
Oh, I'm going to hold you.
It's
I'm going to hold you to those words. Okay.
yeah, it's in the formula. The other things are wavelength.
You should have told me earlier. By the way, you should have told me 4 years ago. I would have, been collecting that data.
Maybe should have asked 4 years ago. I don't know. Yeah, temperature, pressure, humidity, CO2 content, wavelength. I think that's it. Yeah. They're the factors. All right. So we usually assume a wavelength in the middle of the visible spectrum, like 550 nanometers, something like that. CO2 content, we usually just keep it a constant of 400, 410, whatever. But the pressure, because of gravity, the pressure gradient is incredibly stable, right? Because it would equalize instantly if it was out of whack. The temperature is the biggest variable. Okay, so pressure is kind of invariable or invariant. All right, we can't manipulate. There's no the pressure lapse rate or the pressure change with respect to altitude is pretty constant. All right, but the temperature changes with elevation and is variable, and the humidity changes with elevation as well. So they're the two factors, basically temperature and humidity, that are the variables.
Are some of these predictable?
Predictable? No.
Let's say an almanac. Let's say
Right.
say you were looking up this time each year. Are things predictable?
The gradient.
Just say yes so we can go forward.
Well, the gradient
Just
won't
let me
be.
go forward. Are they measurable?
They're measurable, of course.
Okay.
Yeah.
Some things are predictable and some things are measurable. So you have to take these things into consideration when we talk, because you've yet to supply any force or reason for the bending of light. Now I'm telling you, it has to be a variation of temperature at this point, because I'm going to eliminate the vertical. We're working on
You can't eliminate
now
the
when
only thing that matters.
Now imagine what I said. Now, can you predict certain things?
You can predict the pressure,
insert all variables that you are sure we may encounter under 2 meters, just so you know, because I'll be comfortable with your predictions on that.
Right. The trouble with predicting things in the span of 2 meters, especially close to the surface, the FE core laser test, right? They took a measurement at the surface at 0 meters, like they measure the air temperature and the humidity, and then they took a temperature and humidity at 2 meters. Okay, and that gradient over that 2 meters was extreme. Okay, but the problem that you'll run into when you're close to the surface is that that gradient that we just calculated over 2 meters is an average over that 2 meters. All right, it might be super extreme between 0 and 1 meters, and then between 1 meter and 2 meter, it might be something completely different. That's the problem that you run into doing things close to the surface, taking measurements. You're just applying an average. Whereas when you get way above the surface, the gradient is so stable and so predictable that, yes, you can apply standard refraction.
Okay, I'm going to have to just boldly tell you, please stop disregarding our work where we've achieved, instead of telling me I have to go in the air, because in the air I don't have a comparison. See, I'm measuring, looking for an obstruction on a horizon line that's not there. All of our observations are proving that we're looking beyond the horizon. Now you're saying, hey, everything's bending, your light bending, everything bending. And I'm saying, okay, let's check that out. So by what forces? Now I'm going to tell you again, it can't be a vertical gradient. You can insert your predictive numbers or real numbers, but you need to show that when we went up a couple more feet, that it made a difference, because I can show you and tell you it hasn't. Now, maybe under certain conditions it might. Let's check it out, right? What I'm eventually going to tell you is that if you had a distant span with a hot sidewalk and the sun went down, you could probably find a way to shoot a laser across it and predict, based on the temperature, the light's direction up or down, because there's a differential now, a gradient between what I call boundary refraction now, because it's not about the atmosphere, you're down low. So would you be able to predictably bend light, particularly over 5 miles, I hope, because that's what we
distance
do.
doesn't matter.
Well, okay, so in the morning, you're going to have the reverse effect. You're going to have a cold sidewalk and a warm air. Can you now show the light bending in the opposite direction? Now, I understand
I will tell you that it is, yeah.
I understand that there's a difficulty with this in the end, because you end up with a miraging effect. And just so everyone knows, because this was totally cool, Jesse Gordon told me, is when you have a warmer bottom than the top, that it's going to look to rush upward. The colder air is going to look to replace that. And that's the swirling motion we see when we see a surface that sometimes looks like water, but it's actually turbulent air on top of the horizon line, which you can see in
Mirage,
which you might be seeing in some of which in B-ball shot.
In Fury Mirage, I don't see an Inferior Mirage in B-ball's background that he's got.
I'm not sure I'm describing an inferior mirage. Maybe though.
Yeah,
maybe.
I can't see an Inferior Mirage.
But
Inferior Mirage mirroring, right?
Disturbed air that may not give you an easy reading of anything, which is what you're telling me about the noise. That's the noise that you're telling me about, is the constant motion of the cold air rushing down.
That's turbulence. Turbulence and heat haze, yeah.
Yeah, but you don't get that when it's the other way. When it's cold down and hot up, you don't get that.
The heat haze, that's exactly when you get it. You've got a cold surface and a warm air above.
What I can show you is that we've achieved line of sight with a variety of different light sources and conditions and distances. Right, I don't think mathematically you can keep up with that. And I don't think you can come up with one prediction. Now, I'm going to ask you eventually to agree or not with the boys. Do you think a half a degree or 0.13 degrees Celsius is enough to get me over the globe, to get me 8 inches per mile squared? Because remember, I'm claiming to be below the gradient, so I'm not.
You can't do that.
I'm below. Yes, I'm below the vertical. You can eat shit. I'm below your vertical gradient. You can eat shit. Do that. Well, I am proving it because I'm telling you, predict and insert any numbers you want at these low distances. I can show you variations for myself from 20 to 2 feet. I can show you variations from 70 inches to 2 inches or 1 inch. So as I move through that gradient, I have found no change in the result. You need mathematics. Each inch, each light source, each variable that you think is important isn't. What I need to move on
is the pressure different? Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead. I was just going to say something about mine, but that's fine.
Is the pressure at the surface different to the pressure at 1 meter?
Possibly, sure.
Yes, it is. You can measure it. So there is a gradient.
Yeah, but can you show that it has an effect upon light, dude?
It has to.
You're fucking so weird. Okay.
Density gradients bend light.
I first need you to do it on paper as a prediction, and then we'll get the boys to go demonstrate it.
Well, Dan, we know.
In the meantime, their claim. Right, but in the meantime, their claim, Rube, respond to this. In the meantime, their claim is that they only need 0.13 degrees Celsius differential between anything to cause the effect. Now, I'm going to tell you, if that were true, what would happen with the overachieving when we have more temperature variation? Where is that overachieving showing?
Yeah, I'll get to that. But there is a pressure gradient between 0 meters and 1 meter.
I explained it over and over again as a density gradient.
And that's the component to density, yes.
Okay, so imagine again, I'm looking through no glass,
All
and
right, hang on.
that's
Give me
a
2 minutes, Dan. 2 minutes. 1 sec.
So everyone, if we're looking through nothing, that's like there's no resistance. If you're looking through a set of glass, regardless of its correctional properties, it's going to have a certain opaqueness and eventually cause resistance to light. If you stack them up like mile after mile after of air, you're going to get a stack that they now call has a refractive property. In other words, you're going to slow down light. And I get it, and I didn't understand that. And standard refraction is regarding that. The curving or bending is a different refractive property having to do with it having a boundary with something else where it has to move through a different something, moving air, um, water, something that's uniquely different enough for it to bend light. So that's all I'm really trying to describe now is the difference between atmospheric, which is vertically stacked, and horizontal when you're going through one layer, the bottom layer. And so the density that he wants to invoke is true. The more further I go, the more windows I'm looking through. But it didn't change direction. It changed speed. And that's where they have to figure out why there's a perfect directional change at all these different light sources and distances, day and night, over land, water, and ice. So it's fucked up. And ice was the most difficult, and FE Core sucks ass. So that won't help him much to talk about them. I've done plenty of other stuff. Talking about them won't help. So, B-Ball, let's talk about the lifting water in these shots. It's a fucking pain in my ass because sometimes it is water and sometimes it's turbulent air looking like water. I could show you great examples of how I was fooled.
The thing is that you have to say, okay, there's what in the atmosphere in Hawaii is causing the water to be lifted up.
And is it? Is it? Of course, is it?
I mean, there's nothing you could say that, okay, well, what would be causing that what would be causing that in the atmosphere? And why is it only doing it to the water and not the buildings also? Because remember that, like, in these shots, if you're looking at my screen, in these shots right here, this is a 25-story building, and we're only seeing like 15 stories of it. Right, and also, let me see if I can find it real quick. If I can present it. I'm not sure if I can find it.
I say I got a handful of examples like this that are like, what the fuck?
All right, let me see if I can present it.
I don't know what to do with.
Present a screen.
One is landings in Oakland from the stadium in Frisco. Another one's in France. There you go.
Okay, so you see all this land right here?
Uh-huh.
This is what we don't see. And this building right here, that's the building that's behind my head. This building right here.
Okay, so quickly, the mileage is what?
No, I'm sorry. It's this building over here.
Right? So the mileage to the target, do you have any idea how far the building is away?
It's 14 miles.
Sweet. And the elevation is pretty low. What do you got?
My elevation is about 11 feet.
Oh,
so
really?
All of these things on this island and all of these boats right here are blocked by the water.
Uh-huh.
And we're only seeing all the way up to I'd say the 10th floor maybe.
Right? How do you know you're shooting level, or what the hell's level at this point?
I mean, regardless if I'm not. We mean shooting level. My camera is level.
Yeah. What
I mean, the levelness of the camera is irrelevant.
I agree with you. I like you for saying that. Thanks.
Yeah, that's irrelevant because if I point my camera up or down, it's not going to change the amount of the building that's visible.
If you were lower, it could make a bigger difference. That's why I think this shot's lower, to tell you.
Yeah, if I was lower, there'd be more of the building missing.
Yeah, I don't know. You sure that's 11 feet?
Yeah, it's 11 feet. I measured it with an auto level.
And those waves are pretty big, like 3 feet, right?
Regardless, I'm still above the water.
Uh,
Now, here's something else. Now, I mean, look at this picture right here. So you see this right here? This
Yeah.
is the boat. This is from 25 stories up. Here's the same boat about 30 minutes prior. So I took this picture first of the boat. Then I waited 30 minutes. Then I took this picture.
okay, so you're saying stories up, and I'm gonna have to imagine that distance to be at around
All right.
10 miles.
Yeah, that I don't know the distance to the boat. But here's where I took the picture
Makes a
from.
difference.
This is where I took the picture from.
You know the horizon's at 3 miles, right?
Not at 25 stories. No, it's a little farther than that.
Okay, that's true.
Yeah. So this is where I took that picture from. And I took this picture here, and then I took this picture. And you can clearly see that the boat has gone below the horizon.
It appears to have done something bottom up. What I need you to do is understand why they tell me of all the trouble bottom up
All right.
is at the
I'll be right
surface.
back. I'll be right back.
Right. So they always tell me about the problems at the surface level. And at some point when I ask something like, well, what about the overall height of this fucker? How are we seeing it at all? They don't care. And that's silly. It's like, well, what's the fucking distance? And, I can't get that info a lot because forget the bottom of the boat where we know all the noise and problems arise. Why don't we talk about the top of the boat and whether it should be in sight at all mathematically? And that's always a desperate act for me to get, surprisingly, to get that data. How far is that away? He says, I don't know. And then he's increased the angle by 25 stories. Like, okay. So with 200 feet of elevation, I don't know how much further he should be seeing. I mean, I don't know what that means. I never tried that. So here we are, wondering again what causes light issues on the horizon. Shout out to the missing, what's it called? The missing curvature.
Whose share are we supposed to have up right now? Is it Dan is supposed to be yours or Earth is Life's?
You could pull it down. He's not. I mean, I don't know what he's going to say about it. How you doing, Demon? Thanks for having us.
Thanks for coming.
Gonna have to split my favorite bands in town. Jimmy's Chicken Shack from Maryland. They do the song "Let's Get Flat." Super cool. So, kind of gonna feel flat tonight.
Getting your flat on.
Once you go flat, you never go bad.
Except for those that do.
Well, there's some great points made about how weak the flat Earth position has been, and its integrity has been, damaged pretty bad, and censorship too. But some of the integrity, is there, but it's not as strong. I don't think it could hold me. If it were a rope and you were going on that swing, I might not go. And that's a problem. So that's why you see me clinging to the physics of light here, because their stories have been pretty all over the place. And it's exciting to sort out some of the stuff instead of ignoring it. And it'll be a slow transition if I can keep the word flat in my vernacular and have it mean something.
Yeah.
2 + 2 = 5. Riggs says 2 + 2 = 5. That's what Riggs says.
Yeah, no. Sorry, I can't be much help on the refraction. I'm gonna have to certainly touch up my knowledge on it because it seems to be a big topic of
No,
debate.
it's a last finger of me holding onto an edge. Go back to the shit because I love the space stuff. I got big holes there. At the same time, I did meet a
Appreciate it.
satellite engineer. Who had a lot of nice things to say about me and the fact I could be in a conversation with them at all, because most people don't know about orbits or trajectories, and he was really comfortable talking, but he wanted me to know it was a globe, and I wanted to think, how could he have been fooled? So now I like I was touching on with you earlier, if you could look up these three words together, it's really orbit, satellite, and balloon, and they're suddenly all in the same sentence a lot, and that's like, wait a minute, the same headline even, and it's like, what the fuck? So they sort of changed the word orbit to include what I used to call a circuit that goes around. And they're kind of allowing that for orbit on balloons to call it orbit. It's like, so it's like satellites are allowed to be on balloons, balloons are allowed to be called orbit, and it's like, ugh, it's slippery one to me. I see that coming.
Yeah, and you really don't believe satellites are on balloons, right? Please tell me you don't believe that.
Many are.
I mean, I'm talking about actual satellites.
Actual satellites, like
the ones that are
GPS. Yeah.
The fast stuff in the sky cannot be balloons.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
To be honest.
Yeah. Do you want to head back to what B-Ball was saying? We'll talk about rockets whenever.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to finish up soon. So if you guys have anything in particular you want to go over, that'd be cool. Otherwise, I'm really excited to start talking about what is the cause for the effect in bending, because I understand refraction more enough to know it is a slowing down. You have to have an uneven slowing down for it to now want to bend in one direction or another. So usually that's temperature.
I can agree with that, and temperature, and I would say pressure also. The density of the atmosphere.
Yeah, and as you go through more of it, it's denser by nature as you go through more of it.
Right.
So that's what they call gradient density. More of it, each increment, each inch or each mile, whatever. So
well, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I just understand now they still got to come up with a direction. They can slow it down, which is a lapse rate, but you have to have an uneven lapse rate for the bending, for the change. To a change.
Yeah, my knowledge of lapse rates only to do with planes and stuff. I'm talking about Kelvin per kilometer, not refraction lapse rate close to the surface.
They measure it per meter too. It's probably pretty similar.
Yeah, it would just divide by 1,000, so it'd be 6,000ths of a Kelvin per meter.
That was
B-Ball's
cool.
tweaking. B-Ball's tweaking.
That was
my laser.
Nice.
There you go. Laser test.
Oh, we're gonna call the call. Oh, nice.
Nice.
That looked cool. It greened you out all the way because it's green.
But yeah, Dan. So let's say we had someone at the base of this building right here with a laser.
Okay, I'm gonna dig up something too. So okay, go.
Let me see. Give me a second. I gotta find a good picture. I'm not presenting, am I? No. Okay. Go through my hundreds and hundreds of pictures. Okay, here's a good one. All right. So we got a person, right? Here we go. We got a person at the base of this building here. See all these trees?
Hang on, I'm not with you. Where are we? Here? Yes, go.
We got a person at the base of this building with a laser, right? Standing right here, shining the laser towards me. Then we got someone far away standing here. You think they would see the person holding a laser?
I would say no fucking way. Bob, the science guy, says, "Yeah, I'm going to skip it off the top of the water."
And I would agree with that. You would see the light shimmering off the top of the water.
Okay. I hear you.
So that's kind of what I know you don't want to agree with that, but that's the way I see it when you guys talk about your laser test and you said you saw you get line of sight to the laser. That's kind of what I'm thinking about when you guys talk about your laser test. You kind of, maybe, I don't know what you guys did, but I'd say you're pointing it at the horizon, at the water, and it's reflecting off the water, and that's how you're seeing it on the other side.
Right, it could be. I think there's more mirroring and weird shit going on than we realize. I'm gonna give you an image on my screen. If you
All right,
can
I'm gonna stop presenting.
check it out. This is something. I mean, I could show you better successes and shit like that, but I'd love to show you a failure because I think that's better. Share screen, and sorry, screen. Okay, so in the center of this picture, this is a 10-mile span. This is an infrared shot.
Hold on, I'm not seeing it yet.
Oh, you are right. You are right.
Oh, hold on, I see it now. There we go.
I'm sorry about that. In the center of this, right here, if you can see my mouse, is a telephone pole. This is a 10-mile span in infrared. And this is somebody trying to pick up Jaronism, who is standing in front of that pole with a mirror. And they fucking knew where he was because they could see cars going by on the road up here.
Mm-hmm.
So they knew where he was, but they never spotted him. But if you look at this image more closely, there's a mirror line across here.
Definitely.
So it's really unusual because part of this is unfolded and inverted and stacked down here.
Yep.
So it's really fucking weird to try and figure out what you're seeing. And
that's probably due to the heat and that, that's due to the heat.
Maybe, and if I play this video, you'll see this weird line here that looks like a water line, but I'm beginning to think it's an air disturbance and not the water line. I think the water line's way down here.
No, I'd say the water line is probably where the inversion starts.
When the big truck goes by, you'll see how far down there. See the reflection?
Yeah.
Damn. Right? It's like, what? What's in that zone? Like what the fuck is in that zone? It's pretty hard to say. Anyway, that's a cool image just to see how fucked up things really are.
I would say that the water line is probably where that inversion starts. That's my take on it.
Yeah, it's trippy. Like we were seeing cars and shit over here, and all of a sudden it was like, wait a minute, where's the beach? There's 20 feet of beach missing. And when you play this, you'll see all this waving and shit that makes it look like there's water all the way up to the parking lot. And there's just not. So I think that's moving air. I know it's wavy right there, but I don't think those are water waves at all.
Yeah, and
it sure looks like it.
Mirror flash you guys are talking about, right?
One of them. Yeah, this one's from up in a parking lot. So this is way up at like 18 feet. It's not down by the water. And mathematically, it may look accurate. If we're on a ball, that is the 16 feet of ocean between us, or water,
Right.
if we're on a ball. So thank God I moved to another distance and don't see that again, meaning the math doesn't hold up. You know, if that 16 feet was all it was. This is a cool shot. Somebody left their headlights on and they were thinking it was the mirrors, and it wasn't. It was just the headlights. And we realized you could see the definition of some vehicles and tires. And that's when you're like, wait a minute, that can't be water up that tall unless it's just like your shot, B-ball. Just like your shot. There's a rise of water of 18 feet right there in my shot. So either that's air or your globe is kicking in to rise the water up right there. Because there's a big ass missing beach.
Yep.
Like 18 feet of beach. So I'll show you the still of the beach. You'll see what I mean. So something definitely goes on in these on that line. I guess I'll play this out because it is interesting to see all that wave on there and to realize it may not be water. See it here? Looks like water all the way
Again,
across.
that's again. Remember what I said about off the flickering off the water?
Yeah.
I think that's what's going on there.
It looks like it. I agree with you. I've seen other ones where it doesn't, but it looks like it right there. It's pretty close, huh? It's on the top, regardless.
Yeah.
There, it looks like it dips. Yeah, it's real fucking close, whatever that is. So, is the water line all the way up there? Is another question. You'd think these would be definitive answers now.
You know what? I'm gonna show you something real quick.
Okay.
Let me see if I can share my screen. Window. Okay.
Welcome, Mr. Gary Wybenga, to the stage.
Oh,
good. I got it back up.
Dumpster fire incoming.
Gary!
I got to go soon, so.
Here we go.
All right, what are we watching?
Are we watching? All right.
How's it going, Gary?
So you see how there's on this part there's like a lot of haze down here?
Yeah.
It's real hazy.
Super washed out in color.
Yeah. So that is due to there being a runway in between me and these buildings. That's the heat coming off of the runway that's making that really hazy.
Huh.
And if I play. Yeah. There's a 2-mile runway in between me and these buildings over here. When I start panning to the right, that starts to go away because I'm no longer looking over that runway.
You gonna still tell me you're up at 10 and 11 feet here?
Yeah, same thing.
That's some mighty choppy water.
Trust me, it gets way more choppier than this.
But look how the height appears to be equal to the camera, just a few feet away on some of these waves.
Yeah, I'm zoomed in.
I say that short waves are obstructing the distant image in some way.
It would have to be those would have to be really tall waves though.
Yeah, and you'd have to be low.
Yeah, I'll show you where I'm at.
See when you zoom in, see
this spot right here? This is where I'm at right here. See right here?
Huh.
That's where I'm at.
Oh, that's high enough. That's high enough to get the waves out of your way.
So that's a boat that's cut in half.
Apparently so. The distance over there is 14, you said?
So this, as it's getting farther and farther in the distance now. So this is Diamond Head coming up here. If you know about Hawaii, you know there's about Diamond Head. All along this shore, there are buildings that you can't see.
Ooh, go back. Go back to the wave. Watch the wave. Watch how much obstruction you get out of a little wave. Look how many feet disappear in the distance.
That wave right there. Yeah, I'm zoomed in. So
yeah, I'm just not sure what we're seeing, but I'm pretty
over
sure
on this part of Diamond Head, there are all types of buildings that you can't see that are down. They're like down here.
Yeah, I just see these swells having an effect on your vision too.
Yeah, but look how high above the water I am.
But the angle of attack changes when you're looking across it. 14 miles, you said?
So it's 14 miles to those specific buildings that I'm talking about.
Uh-huh.
Right?
Ooh, this is interesting.
As you get farther.
Oh, let me watch these guys bob in the water. How interesting is that? See how it appears like their entirety disappears from a little wave?
Oh, of course, I'll give you that. But that means
but it's not happening. It's not happening. That wave isn't bigger than them. What's that guy standing on?
Hey, check this out. This is interesting right here. So you see this building right here?
Yeah.
You see that? That's where the height the runway starts. It goes from here, then it goes up a little bit. The runway starts over here.
Okay.
There's a what is it? Waikiki the airport for Waikiki is literally right here, and we can't see it. The entire runway, the entire airport is all right there. 2 miles of
Look
runway.
at that wave. Look how many feet that wave covers in the distance.
Yeah, but 2 miles of that runway is being obscured by the water.
Mm-hmm. Okay, let's say this is a bay, right?
Mm-hmm.
And let's say I was an ocean pushing my way in with tides or waves. Swells, which come and go as part of the regular cycle. When they have storm surges, you have an overall swell that's not part of the wave cycle. But wouldn't you expect if I approached a bay that the water may raise in elevation as it's literally pushed in?
Yeah, of course, but all of the water, not just a part of it. All of the water would do that.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'm reaching. I'm probably reaching there because I don't know. I've never really. I have many examples now of this rising water.
Again, here's my location. It's on a more clearer day.
If you keep showing rising water, I'm going to sick the concave guy on you. I'm just going to tell him you said it was concave.
No, definitely not. Again, see that building?
Mm-hmm.
Again, this is where the heat. This is where the runway is. All that heat is coming off that runway, and look what it's doing to this building.
Yeah, it's distorting the shape of it. Sure, I see that. Wow, those guys look at the wave covered them up in their entirety. Those guys.
So in this building, the same thing. The entire runway is like literally in between me and this building right here. That's where planes take off, and I think I have a video where I can see an airliner take off from right here.
Yeah, like I said, I could show you. I showed you examples of our own where it appears like the water line has risen. Not sure if it's true. It seems to be a conditional thing. In other words, it doesn't look like this tomorrow, right?
Yeah.
Looks different. So
Well, every single day I went, I mean, you still get the same amount of obstruction. You know, go back to that one.
you sure?
It's pretty consistent. If you look here, where's that building? Right there. So this is this building right here.
But based on all the numbers that you guys talk about and all these conditions, it should never be consistent. All you got to do is change the weather, and it should be different.
If you see this building right here, give or take 2 or 3 floors, maybe it'll change. But remember, this is Hawaii, where the conditions are pretty much the same all year round. This building is 15 stories right here.
Mm-hmm. Just seeing the height of a standard wave move across left to right, it tells me that the water is doing something as well.
Well, again, this is the cutoff where the water stops, right? Of course, you're going to see little waves coming in, but remember, this building right here is 25 stories.
Uh-huh.
How many stories are we seeing? Let's see. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 4. I'll say 15 stories. That means we're missing 10 of them.
So that's 100 feet, right?
Give or take, yeah.
So if we got out our little calculator on the Earth curve calculator, let's see. Come here, over here, to here, to here, back to here. Okay, so I've got, let's say 14 miles, let's say 11 feet. And, I should have measured you 25 feet. So, 65 feet should be blocking you, and you're seeing 100 feet missing. Huh. I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm not sure what I'm saying here. Let's see. Obscured object part, 65 feet. It means there should be a 65 feet between you and the object. You're seeing more than that. That's okay.
I mean, to take it with a pinch of salt, because that is ignoring atmospheric conditions, I believe. So it's an underestimate rather than an overestimate.
Can you back up for a second? Look at that color variation and see the dark part. See the dark part.
Yeah.
Do you really think that that's due to angle or what? Because
I think that's just due to whatever's in the water.
We see some heavy banding sometimes, like right there.
Yeah.
So is it depth? Is it temperature? What is it?
It could be the depth of the water.
It's weird. It's not always the same, but it's always there. And I'm like, which part of it's a boundary, or not?
Yeah, there's no. See here, you don't see any miraging or anything.
Unless the green part's the water line and the other part's not.
Yeah, there's no miraging here at all.
That's cool. I see what you're saying. I got a bunch of examples like this. Like Oakland Airport from Candlestick Park or whatever they call it now.
I think that's a sailboat right there. You couldn't really see.
Yeah.
What
That's another boat.
what's your opinion? Because you did the Earth curve calculator, and it seems like for once you're getting an underestimate of how much is hidden rather than an overestimate, which is we see a lot.
I'm literally starved of thirst, hunger, have to shower and leave, and I'm literally pasty from nothing to drink, and I can't think. So I don't know. I looked at that. I'm looking at it on my screen. I don't know what the fuck it needs to be.
Well, Dan, it's the curve of the Earth, Dan. What else could it be?
I don't know. I'm more interested in seeing what the horizon would have been at 25 feet, 200 feet up where you were in that building. 17 miles is where the horizon should have been when you're at the top of the 25 floors.
So hold on one second. I'm going to give you a more accurate. So in these particular observations, I was actually at, let's see, it was 8 feet. Because I went on a website and tried to get the elevation. Hold on 1 second. The elevation of that piece of land that I was standing on. So go to your curve calculator and type in 8 feet.
Say it again. What do you want me to plug in? Okay, 16 mile or 15.5 and 8 feet. Uh, 15 miles from 8 feet. There should be obscured part. Yeah, I don't know if that's the Sagita or not, the way they phrase this. They're saying 90.
Whatever you're looking at.
They're saying 96.61 feet obscured. 90.
So if we're looking at a building with about 10 floors missing, that's pretty close.
Yeah, that's right there. But that's missing a bunch of stuff, I think. Well, just refraction. That's all it's missing.
Also, here's the temperature of that day, and here's the water temperature of that day also.
What's it say? I can't read it.
So it's 81.3 degrees. The water temperature was on that day.
Nice. So that's like really close.
And then the degrees of the air temperature was 83 degrees.
That's really close.
So not much of a refraction. Not much refraction there, except for what I showed you, right?
Except for what the other guys say. The other guys say half a degree is all it needs.
Well, yeah, due to the conditions, right? But these conditions wouldn't allow for that.
Well, I'm just saying that's all they're asking for is a half a degree.
Only where I showed you. Remember where I showed you the where I'm looking over the runway? And to give you an idea, let me see if I can. Oh man, let me see if I can pull that up. Let me see. Am I still sharing my screen? Where's Google Earth? Yeah. Let's zoom in on Hawaii. All right, here's that runway right here. Am I sharing? You guys can see this?
Not yet.
You might have to refocus your window.
All right, let me stop sharing real quick and then present. Why is it doing that? That's weird. Why the hell is this flashing like that?
We're slowly killing down.
All right, there we go. So you see this runway right here?
Yes, it's
the runway that we're looking at.
Yeah.
Over. And if I go here, how do I take down? So here's that building that we were looking at, man. See this building right here?
Sure.
One building. And here, looking from this direction, all the things that are missing from that picture, all that land, and here's that runway right here. And if I zoom out again, here is the location where I was taking those pictures, the video from, right here.
Uh-huh.
Looking in that direction right here. Oh shoot, the hell, big ass thing here. Forgot about that. So there's the other buildings right there. Also, here is that other building that we're missing. Right here. This is the one where is that the one? Or no, is it? Oh, it's this one. I'm sorry. This is the one where you're only seeing 15 stories of.
Mm-hmm.
You can only see up to maybe the 10th or 12th floor. Now I'd say that's a lot of stuff that you're supposed to be seeing. All this is obscured by the water. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I'll stop presenting now.
All right, let me show you something you like. This is this Frisco thing I keep talking about. Share screen, share, and entire screen here. So these are some landings from Frisco to Oakland. And what I keep seeing is the wheels stretching at the bottom. Like when it finally lands.
Oh yeah, I see that.
It goes into a weird distortion level across there.
Yeah.
And so I'm still wondering, okay, are these really waves all the way up? Is it waves? Is it air waves? Showing waves in the air? You know, like what the fuck is going on?
I would say that's the heat coming off the runway, the tarmac.
You might be right. And so it does something weird at the point before it lands, you know, and that's the only thing I have to cling on here as I'm wondering again, why is the water so high? Why is the water so high? Right? Because it shouldn't be, in my definition of flat Earth. The water shouldn't be in the way. And there's some buildings and stuff to measure. Anyway, the only thing I was curious about is what happens here at this point when the plane stretches out.
That's the heat. Whatever the heat's doing in the atmosphere, that's what's causing that.
So is it stretching our buildings or reducing our buildings? Is it not affecting the buildings?
It could be.
Yeah, it's weird. Like, what the hell is going on right there?
But it's definitely going below the horizon.
Something's up. Yeah, Flat Earth is fucked on a lot of things. And Flat Earth needs to fix the lame shit so they can stay on an argument they might have, because we have very few good arguments.
Could you post a link to this in the chat? This is a good one.
Yeah, it is a cool one, huh?
Yeah. I have something similar to that too.
And the chat is over here. There you go.
Nice.
Gary, you ready to take over? Did he leave?
Yeah.
Well, Ruhif is back.
Oh, it's Hoax. Hoax is on.
Welcome, Hoax, to the stage.
Is there going to be a fire? You finally accepted my invite.
Well, I'm sure it's someone we know. Can we get a clue? Are you a hidden character or a new character or not a character? What would you say?
Soccer count.
Focus.
I swear to God, if this is gravity scale.
Come on, Hocus.
Okay, Rue, you missed everything. They admitted the Earth was flat, and my job is done. And you could go back to barbecuing whenever you do, or
Hope
whatever.
Yeah.
seems to be coming back.
Whatever keeps you gardening, whatever keeps you happy.
Oh,
Our next argument, my dear
Mhm.
friend Bruno,
Did
will
we finish the last one?
be. I don't have time to fuck around right now.
All right.
So the vertical. When
Yes.
can we discuss that? Is it measurable? Is it predictable? Can you work with only a half a degree like they want to?
All right. Is it measurable? Yes, it's measurable, but it's very difficult to do that close to the surface.
Could you predict it? Could you work with some imaginary numbers just so we can see how it works out?
Sure. Yeah.
That's what we should do. We could take some existings and we could, throw some variables out there to see what's supposed to happen.
We can do that. Yeah.
Okay, but
But
you and
predictable.
you and I are going to have a difference of opinion on what I now know is the effect of light, the speed of light, known as a lapse rate. And if you have an even lapse rate, you have a slowing down that's even across the left, right, top, and bottom. So to have refraction alone, you can have the standard refraction cause this lapse rate in time. But you've yet to tell me what's making a direction change. And that's what we need to get around the globe.
Okay, the direction change. This is not my area of expertise, but the Maxwell's equations will give you the direction change basically when it interacts with either an electron or the proton itself.
Okay.
It will. I'll show you that. I'll show you what I mean.
I need you to come to consensus with someone at some point, so I don't argue with everyone. And I beg you also remember, I'm begging you to go over converging light and at some point diverging beams, because that's a big stickler for me because I don't explain it well enough. Yet it's not a strong argument.
All right. Can you share me, Damon? There you go. Cool. So this is what happens at a molecular level. It's kind of like the marching band going through the mud analogy. So it gets dragged towards the center. Does that make sense? Have you heard the marching band analogy?
I've never heard that. I'm just imagining the sousaphone slowing down to a crawl, though. It's kind of funny.
The marching band analogy, if you have let's say there's an area of dry land and an area of mud, all right? And you have a marching band in rows of 6 people or whatever. If you hit that mud section at an angle, right, that first person on that row is going to slow down, but then the second person will have a bit more extra time on the dry land before it hits the mud, all right, because we're hitting this mud at an angle. All right, so the marching band kind of has to keep up to stay in their rows. All right, that's the analogy of how it sort of changes direction. All right, so if the light hits the top of a molecule, it will bend downwards, and if it hits the bottom of a molecule, it'll bend upwards. All right, it gets dragged around. Does that make sense?
I don't know. I'm looking at your screen. So Is this one you made this screen, right?
Yes.
I'd prefer it if you start to refer to this portion of refraction as atmospheric refraction, because it's only one class of refraction, and I'm busy dissecting them.
This is any refraction.
No, this is atmospheric, having to do with vertical.
No. Oh, sorry. Yeah, the fact that we have more molecules below than we do above.
Right. This is all about vertical stuff. Because I'll eventually prove to you that in our vertical gradient of under 70 inches, there's inconsequential forces of any kind.
Incorrect.
Well, you'll
That's
find
the steepness
it's true,
gradient.
but it's not going to change the path of your light.
Yes, it is.
Well, I asked you before. I thought temperature is the problem here.
No, the density is composed of temperature, pressure, and humidity and CO2 content, but just
You
ignore
have
that.
no gradients where we work.
Yes, you do. There is a difference in pressure between the surface and 1 meter above the surface.
You're foolish. Now go on.
Measure it. Go and measure it in your room. You've got
It
a
isn't
barometer on your phone, right?
enough to change
Yes, it is.
the path of light.
Yes, it is.
Your
There is
boys,
a gradient.
your boys are claiming it's going to take temperature and it's going to take 0.13 degrees Celsius.
That's a component, right? If the temperature is the same, right? Let's say there's no change in temperature, right? There's still a pressure gradient that will bend light.
You just slid out of the conversation and added something else.
What? What did I add?
You just went straight on to pressure.
Yeah, pressure is the biggest factor. It's the one we can't change, but it is the biggest factor.
Whoa. Okay. So the real factor is space, right? The density increases as you move across more space, right? The gradient has to do with that, not vertical bullshit. Let's get
Vertical
real.
is the only thing that matters.
Real. There is no vertical gradient when we're working lower, dude. Get a grip.
Okay.
Remove
Get your phone right now. Put it on the
Remove
floor.
it. Remove it.
Put your phone on the floor with the barometer on.
Then don't
then
remove
lift
it. Predict it and
50 centimeters.
demonstrate it. Predict it
Do
and
you have
demonstrate
a
it.
barometer on your phone?
Predict the bending of laser light over the horizon and demonstrate it. Stop telling me to climb a mountain.
Well, I will keep telling you to climb a mountain.
All right, well
But
then
there
we don't
is a
have
pressure
much to
gradient.
talk about. I conceded to you that I understand refraction. You say I still don't. Now you don't have a cause for the curvature of light. You have a cause for the slowing down of light.
Which
And the
causes
lapse
a
rate,
change in
the lapse
direction.
rate is not a change in direction. The change in lapse rate would be a change of direction. The consistent lapse rate calls for no directional change. I'm on top of you on this one, and
Just
you are
incorrect.
in trouble.
Just incorrect. That's all it is.
Okay, so things between us, density, more of it,
Yep.
right? Across the way, the gradient is horizontal.
There's no horizontal gradient.
Vertical. No.
Yes, there is a vertical
yet.
gradient.
No pressure yet. It's consistent. We're at the bottom of your gradient tower. It's at the most pressure. It's consistent all the way across. The only variable, the only gradient you have is standard refraction multiplied over and over again each meter, as you normally describe it in the air, or what I would now call each mile across the way. But it thickens, right?
Okay. Is there a gradient between 0 and half a meter? 1
and
meter?
this
Yes.
thickening,
Okay.
this gradient, this slowing down of light does not include any variation in height. It's a slowing down. It's a speed.
It's a change in direction and a slowing down.
No, bullshit. You have nothing to cite the direction change, only the speed.
You think
You
so?
have to have a difference in lapse rate to have a direction change. An even lapse rate is a lapse rate. You have to have a differential.
Snell's law?
You have to have a differential. Snell's law will tell you that. You have to go through more than one medium, dude.
Well, no, you don't. You just have to have a change in density.
You don't have it.
Yes, we do. Is there a density gradient between 0 and 1 meter?
No, not like you're trying.
Okay, get your phone. Get your phone. Put it on the floor with the barometer on.
Fuck you. Just draw it up and prove it.
Yeah.
Don't talk about it.
I am proving it. Get your phone. Put it on the ground.
You're not proving its effect upon light. All of our experiments about light beyond the horizon. Get a grip on what that's about, what I'm talking about, and you'll understand that your toys aren't going to do it. You have to actually go, here's what it comes to. We're going to go, really? Those are the numbers? You go, yeah. And I go, well, what if we moved further? Your number, you can no longer can hit your target. You
said there's not a gradient between 0 and 1 meter.
Oh my God.
Okay. You said that. You said no.
There's not an effective measurement that you can talk about. And if you can, go for it, dude. Throw it the fuck in there.
Okay. You said there's no gradient between
Throw
0
it
and 1
in
meter.
there, dude. We've already achieved the fucking observation. It had
Okay.
no effect. It had no effect. Down
Okay.
to 1 inch.
I'm going to get it out, Dan. I'm going to get it
Mitch,
out.
You're not hearing me.
I am. I heard your answer.
Okay.
You said
So when I
no. There's
move
no
through
gradient
your
between 0 and
when
1
I
meter.
move through your supposed gradient and find no effect, we will eliminate the vertical and can go on to the other gradient, which is across
We will get to
standard
that.
refraction across distance. So we're talking about the classes of refraction and the different things that gradiate, like well, you got density, pressure, temperature, humidity, and now you got CO2, which once we talked about CO2, you go, doesn't really matter. But I'm going to hold you to that. You're going to have to throw that in for me and show me how that affects light as well. The fact of the matter is you don't have any of these properties present in normal spans of normal air where you can demonstrate the bending of laser light, because I don't think we missed anything. Now, you told us over and over again we ignored the gradient. But I realized that when we walked down from 20 feet to 2 feet,
We'll get to that as well.
Had I written down each step as a data point, 18 feet, still observing light, 17 feet, still observing light, that actually would be a measurement of the gradient. And when we do it from 70 inches down to 1 inch with more than one light source, again, that's also a measure of that gradient in a different experiment where it's very, very calm, very cool. So when I move through your 70 inches and maintain our observation, it's thrown in the face of your saying it would make a difference, because we have demonstration after demonstration of moving through your gradient that I didn't realize kind of counts as a measurement.
No, it doesn't.
I'm not sure why, because the results are in.
We'll get to it. But like I said, there's like 20 points here now that I've got to interject on to clarify.
Well, I don't have time for that. You should have been around when you were fucking around earlier. So,
okay. All right. I got to go shortly anyway. So
yeah,
may as well
we'll have to set up a separate debate between you and Dan. But I think we're going to wrap this. So maybe everyone want to give maybe their final thoughts.
Sure, I'm just real thankful for everyone to be here. Flat Earthers won't talk to me. Thanks.
Cool. There is a measurable pressure gradient everywhere. You can measure it with your phone. Thank you, Demon. Give me a yell when you want another guest. Cool. Thanks, guys.
Okay. How about you, Rocket Man?
I mean, this is my first live debate. I've enjoyed it. Dan, you've been a sweetheart. You really have. Thank you for going easy on me. Hopefully we can have a little rocket debate sometime in the future if you're down for it. Wicked. B-ball.
I apologize for my audio. I just realized that I sound like crap.
Yeah, it does.
Because the audio is coming. It wants to take the audio from the camera and not my headset. So yeah, I'm sorry about that. But good discussion, Dan. I appreciate the cordial discussion. Hopefully we can do this again.
Great.
Awesome. Thank you very much, guys, for showing up. I want to point everyone to the next debate. It's a Steelman debate. It's going to be on Tuesday at 8:30 Central. Go ahead and stop by, like, share, subscribe. It's going to help out a lot. And check out the Discord. Links are in the description below. You can find all these guys there arguing all day long. Thanks again for stopping by, guys. Later.